Now we're ready to go over phase 3. In phase 1, we learned about why people use the internet and what they're looking for and how we can make money from that process. And then in phase 2, we learned about in order to effectively make money from the process of why people use the internet, we have to know how to communicate with them. We have to know about the benefits of what problems they're looking to solve and how we can get in the middle of that process to help them find it. Now we move on to phase 3. Phase 3 is really more of a technical process for how we're actually going to communicate and interact with these people. So, how can we effectively interact and communicate with people that are looking to solve problems? And how can we do it in such a way where it will maximize the monetization value of the process, meaning where we can make the most money possible? Well, of all the technologies, of all the methods, of anything to ever happen to the internet and how it relates to business and marketing, the number one tool for communication, and it also happens to be the number one most valuable asset in almost every business on the entire internet, is an email list. Now, what an email list is essentially a list of prospects or customers that have given you or another company permission to contact them. So the email list relates to all the golden days of the mail order industry and all the massive businesses that were built outside of just having a local store. You know, one of the reasons why I really enjoyed getting into the internet when I did in the early 90s and starting to do online projects, and I could really see the future of it, is because I came from the mail order industry. And in the mail order industry, and why I got into that, is because I knew that if I had a local business, some kind of storefront, I'd pretty much be limited to doing business with people that could just come to my store. And that would pretty much limit it to the people that lived in the area. By having a global business, something where you could take orders from people anywhere in the world pretty much, you'd have a much better market, a larger market, and you have much more margin for error. And that's what mail order provided. You could run ads in magazines or media all over the world and take orders through the mail or via phone or fax from anyone anywhere. Well, the value in that business was always the list of customers or prospects. You probably have heard the old mantra, the money is in the list, the list, the list. Because that whole model worked by cultivating value again and again out of a list of people. They'd have a mailing list where they'd mail cold prospects postcards or letters or something, and they got that list using some sort of demographics that would kind of try to figure out which people would be most likely to buy whatever it was they were selling. And then from that list, they'd build another list that were the people that responded or were most likely to buy, but maybe even didn't. And then off that list became a smaller list, which were people that actually bought the thing. But all of those lists have value because they're communication channels. And if you can't have a communication channel, or if you don't have a communication channel, you can't communicate. That's why distribution in business is everything. By having some sort of distribution, you have the ability to get any type of marketing message in front of an audience to generate value, i.e. to make money. So this is why an email list for the internet is so valuable. The other reason why is, out of all the communication methods on the internet, be it social media, be it RSS feeds, be it instant messenger or anything else, email is not only the lowest common denominator of what everyone pretty much on the internet has, but it's also the most valued form of communication. Now, this could change someday down the road if social networking gets bigger and some other things happen, but it's probably doubtful. Email for people is the most valuable form of communication. Most people check their email multiple times a day. They give out their email address. It's pretty much a communications method that's second only to the phone. And it has its conveniences and its place in the digital world. So the email list for business is what's making people pretty much the most money today. Because of that, in anything you do on the internet, you need to be building an email list. Now, why does an internet email list have so much value? Because of the fact that it creates a cycle of communication that you can repeat. If you put a marketing message or any type of information in front of somebody, whether it's just good content or whether it's a sales pitch, and you do it in such a way where you can't do it again, that has limited value. But if you get them on an email list, and until they unsubscribe, and as long as they keep opening the emails from you, you can put communication in front of them again and again and again. On the other side of things, if someone just comes to your website and then they leave and they may never come back, you only had that one opportunity to monetize and generate value. So building an email list is absolutely critical as the first stage of anything you do on the entire internet. Now, there are certain business models where this is an exception, but in almost every case of building a sound growing business, the most important asset you can actually have is an email list. A targeted group of prospects or cash paying customers that are giving you permission to communicate with them by email, which they already value as the most important communication method outside of the telephone and the number one prioritized communication method for the internet. So now that we've covered that, you know that you need to get people onto an email list in order to generate and produce maximum value from them. So how do you do that? Well, when you have some kind of a traffic source that brings people to your site in the first place, you need to find a way to get them to subscribe to your email list. The thing you have to keep in mind about an email list as an asset is it's primarily the only core asset in an internet-based business or internet-based marketing that has the best chance of producing cash on demand. If you have a large email list, you can get rid of everything else in marketing. You can get rid of Facebook and Twitter, pay-per-click advertising, search engine optimization, and everything. But if you still contain the ability to access your email list and get a message to them, you can generate 10 to 100 times more income than you can from those other methods, comparatively speaking, and multiple times because you have the ability to recycle communications and get messages in front of people more than once. So all traffic needs to lead somewhere within reason to a method to subscribe to an email list. Now, there are two models for doing this on the internet. The first one is what people call a squeeze page or simply a forced opt-in page. It's a web page that promises information of some kind or some kind of value in order to get people to join an email list. And then if they join the email list, they'll then get to advance to another page or another part of the website that has some kind of valuable content or, of course, offers some kinds of related solutions for that problem that the person originally has or what they're looking for. So that's the first model that you can use. The second model that you can use is simply using a website design that has great information on it. Remember, the entire internet is made up of information. And so if you don't have great top-notch information, great information, you are already behind the curve for the value of monetization that you can get from your efforts. You will make less money if you have inferior content. If you have really poor content, you're probably not going to make much money at all unless you just get kind of lucky. So the second model is having a site that has really good information, and then somewhere within the site, on a sidebar of a blog or anywhere else on the site, you may have an opt-in subscription form, which is another opportunity for people to opt in to join your list. And then, of course, when they do, they get access to your email newsletter or some kind of value that was promised if they subscribed in the first place. It's the same thing in the first model. Not only do they get access to further web page content, typically with that model, but they'd also get the email list content that you promise if they subscribe. Now, how do you get people to subscribe and join a subscription form? Well, it's important for you to know that the history of the internet has a lot to do with response rates related to getting people on an email list. So back in the early 90s, mid 90s, when people first started building email lists, they would put up a form or some type of, promo thing that basically just said, submit your email address in order to get our free newsletter. And that's all it said. And then that method and technique evolves into submit your email address and get our 3 tips for making, a better garden in your backyard. And then that evolved to get our once a month email magazine on how to create an amazing garden. And when you do, you're also going to get 2 bonus reports on how to get tomatoes to grow faster than you ever thought possible. In other words, email marketing and getting people to subscribe, the game had to really be raised. And it did as people and more competition came online, because more and more companies are fighting to get people's subscription. Getting people's attention is one form of currency on the internet. Just getting them to look at your information or pay attention to you. The second one, and the second valuable type of commodity or currency, is that email address subscription, the permission to be able to email them. So in order to get people to give you their permission at the highest rate possible, you really have to make an enticing offer. So you have to make an offer offering something in exchange for the currency they're paying with their email, which is their email address. So what are they going to be given in return if they give you their attention and email address to join your list? Well, because so many people ask people to join their lists, they really need a pretty enticing offer in order to give up their email address, especially with spam being such a problem. They want to reduce the amount of email they get, most people do, rather than get more of it. So it really needs to be an enticing offer. So the offer, in order for it to be enticing, needs to offer some really good value. So we're looking for value here because it's an exchange that's happening, right? Giving up the email address is their currency. It's like their form of money. So in order to get something in return, it's got to be of great value, and that has to be communicated in the offer. Well, in order to communicate effectively in the offer, and in order to properly represent the most value possible, you have to go back to phase 2, where we discuss the benefits and the benefit within the benefit of the problems people are trying to solve. In order to properly position an offer and also have something related to it of value, like a special report that teaches them 6 secret techniques for having a better garden, it has to speak to in the communication and the information to get them to even want the thing when it speaks to those benefits and the benefit within the benefit. So that's where phase 2 comes in and why it's really important. So here in phase 3, it's all about being able to communicate, and on more than one occasion where we'll drive more and more value, but to effectively communicate with folks that are looking to solve those problems, or at least looking for certain types of information like those reviews. So this is how we do it. We build the email list in our business. We get people to subscribe based on an offer of value and using some type of communication in order to get them to accept the offer. And then we get them onto the email list. But the second part of that process goes beyond just being able to get them on the email list. And that's what we'll talk about in phase 4.